Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us at another one of our AcQuum Insight sessions. My name's Leon Burke, and I'm a director here at AcQuum. Today's topic, what we're going to do is we're going to cover reporting capabilities out of SunSystems and its ability to solve complex requirements. The example that we chose today was PTRS, so the Payment Times Reporting Scheme. We picked this solution because it brings together all the lots of different pieces of SunSystems into one solution. At the outset, I just want to say that we're not providing accounting advice here. What we're doing is we're giving you a systems view of our PTRS solution. If you have any specific PTRS questions, feel free to reach out to your tax advisor. Today, I'm presenting from Melbourne, located on the lands of the Wurundjeri First Nations people. The Wurundjeri have lived on these lands continuously for 40,000 years. I want to thank the First Nations people in all the lands for their care of those lands, the waters, the animals, and I pay tribute to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Today's agenda, what I'll do is I'll do a quick introduction to PTRS as we know it. Then I'll hand it over to Kath. She'll take you through the AcQuum Consulting PTRS solution. Then we'll finish up with some questions and answers that you might have. At the moment, we've got the lines all muted, so feel free to pop any questions you might have into the chat, or we'll open the mics up after Kath's session and then let you ask questions in person if you like. So, what is PTRS? The PTRS, or the Payment Times Reporting Scheme, it requires organisations, mostly large ones, to report twice yearly on how they pay their small business suppliers. PTRS data from individual organisations is then published and it's accessible to the public via the Payment Times Register. So what we've done is we've got a link there at the bottom, so to the registerpaymenttimes.gov.au dashboard. You'll all get recordings of this presentation, but if you go through to that link, that'll actually show you the payment performances from different organisations that they've got on the register at the moment. So why was it put in place? Well, it was the belief of the regulator that publishing business performance will encourage large organisations to improve their payment times to small businesses. What the Payment Times Reporting Scheme doesn't do, it doesn't report any terms and it doesn't mandate any payment times for large businesses. It just reports the performance. So it's just really a reporting register. And so it started, when it started was back in January 2021. Then what they did was they had a 12-month grace period before the compliance and enforcement powers commenced. Now, if we fast forward to now, it's due twice a year. Once on the 30th of September and once on the 31st of March. And then lastly, I thought I'd just outline what happens if organisations don't comply to PTRS before handing over to Kath. And what they say is that when non-compliance is identified, the regulator may do one of the following four things. They might issue you with a guidance letter. They may publish details of non-compliance. They could issue an infringement notice, or they may seek civil penalties through the court proceedings. So I guess with that background, what I'll do is I'll hand over to Kath now to take you through our solution. We hope you enjoy the session. Remember, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat, or we'll open up the mics after the session. So Kath, over to you.
What I first want to cover is basically the process that's involved with PTRS. So from the diagram on the screen, the first step you do is you compile a list of all your suppliers' ABNs. You would normally expect to get that your current system. So you compile a list of the supplier ABNs, you then take that list and you upload that list into what's called a small business identification tool. That's part of the PTRS portal. And that will actually allow you to identify, to get 3 lists out of the system, and you can choose which one suits you best. The first list you can get is a list of invalid ABNs. So if any of your ABNs in your suppliers list were invalid, you will get those identified coming out of the tool. The next thing, you have a choice of either listing out all the medium to large businesses which need to be excluded from the report, or you can list out the small businesses which need to be included in the report. But as you see on the right hand side here, both with the files that you upload to the small business tool and the files that it produces out, you need to keep a record of those files, both inputs and outputs. And you also need to keep a record of your summary reports, which are lodged on the portal, and you need to keep those records for 7 years. So once you've uploaded to the small business tool, and it's then provided a list of all small businesses back to you, and those are the small businesses to include in the reporting, you then need to update your systems or update your own supplier lists. And then once those are updated, you can prepare the payment times report and then actually upload that payment times report, which is a summary report, to the PTRS portal. So that's the basic steps involved in the PTRS process. So I'll just move on to the next slide. So that's the process. What I want to briefly cover now is some of the sort of SunSystems and Q&A functionality that can be used to address the solution. The first item is the fact that we can leverage off the fact that SunSystems got very powerful analysis, which can assist in not only the simple reporting but the complex reporting. So we'll be looking to utilise some of that analysis capability to capture information such as whether there is a flag to indicate they're a small business or not. We can also make use of standard fields such as the tax identification field to hold the ABN number, and existing additional fields functionality, which allows us to actually define a general date field to be used specifically to capture the invoice received date, which is a specific requirement of the PTRS reporting. So we can use additional functionality that's current in the system to hold those dates and other data. Then we can actually customize the entry forms to make it easier for the users to enter that data and capture it within the correct flow. We can apply business rules to control how that data is entered. An example there is the fact that the ABN numbers we'd want without spaces. People might have a tendency to put the spaces in within the ABN number. You could also consider applying data audit onto your supplier records so that you can capture any changes that are made to the ABN number or that small business flag on the supplier. You must have that switched on already. Then what we're looking to do is utilise, in this scenario, we're utilising Q&A to extract the data on your supplier and provide upload templates. So those can be used in conjunction with the small business tool to actually keep the small business flags and the ABNs updated correctly within SunSystems. Now, the scenario we're talking about today will be Q&A. However, it's equally an equal solution could be provided within the EPM product. It's just a question of what's most appropriate for your business. And then, so we're using Q&A to keep that information maintained on a regular basis, and then we'll let the Q&A do the detailed calculations and the donkey work required to actually get that information, manipulate it, and present it in the summary report provided by, needed by PTRS. So that's a quick sort of highlight of the areas that we're going to look at and utilise. Next, preparing for PTRS, you want to make sure that you're holding the correct metadata and the transactional information in your system so that you can enable that PTRS reporting with a minimum of hassle. First and foremost, though, what you need to do is confirm if you do need to report, if you actually fit in to the requirement. So you need to do, as Leo mentioned, it would make sense to check with your tax advisor, and you can get more information on the government website. So I've got that website on the slide here. Once it's confirmed that you do need to report and that you're liable to report, then the next step is to register on the Payment Times Reporting portal. Once you're registered, you then have the ability to use that SBI tool to identify suppliers and check suppliers ABNs in the system, but you also need to check and update your supplier ABNs in SunSystems, because you may not be maintaining those on a regular basis because they haven't been needed previously. So we've got that step to actually update those ABNs in SunSystems. The invoice received date, you need to review how you're going to capture that, how you're going to best capture that. That very much depends on the processes you have in place for logging and registering your invoices once they're received, as to whether you can actually have that information on hand at the time. So it requires a review and a discussion on capturing that invoice receipt date, and likewise, if you've got AP interfaces, can they provide that information to you, as opposed to the supplier's invoice date. So there's a review there. Then you need to set up the relevant fields or define the relevant fields in SunSystems to capture the dates and the analysis. Moving on from that, most importantly, you need to set up a reporting tool so that they can actually report on the information correctly. And this may seem like a small one, but you need to decide on your approach you're going to use to actually use that SBI tool. So the couple of approaches there, you could do what's called a consistent approach, which is whereby you actually make it part of your month-end process to update, to check with the SBI tool, update your suppliers so that they're more regularly maintained, so there's less work to do at the end of the 6-month period. Or you can alternatively decide to wait until the reporting period is over, and then use the SBI tool to do an extract and update the information at the close of the reporting period, and again then just before you actually produce your report. So there's a decision to be made there. And then there's a very small one. You need to set up a location to store and record all your SBI tool lists and your input into the portal, big output from the portal, and your reports. As I mentioned earlier, it's 7 years on that. So once you've prepared and you've got the system set up, at PTRS reporting time, what steps are involved? But if you put all that planning into place and you've got the preparation, then it should be fairly straightforward. Your steps would be, number one, to extract the supplier ABN details and upload those to the SBI tool. Use the result list that's output from that tool to then update your suppliers so they've got the latest information. But it is possible for small businesses to opt out of the scheme, so they can choose to opt out, so they would need to be excluded. So they may have been in your list of small businesses previously, but may have opted out since you did your last update. So you've got this last you do a last run, then you would actually run the report to extract the detailed information, detailed data, and summarize it and roll it up into the PTRS template format. Like with any report, before you send it off, you're going to review that resultant report. And there are some fairly static fields in the template, the PTRS template. Say the person who's actually produced the report needs to be recorded there. You may need to update that. It may be a different person doing it in this reporting cycle. So there may be some template fields that need to be updated. Finally, once you're happy that's all correct, then you can upload the report and the accompanying signed declaration to the portal. And that's the process done. So by putting the planning in place at PTRS reporting time, it should be a question of just running these 5 steps. That is an outline of the processes. What I'm going to do now is flip to SunSystems so we can actually see some of our solution or the setup that we've got in place. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the key to this. Within the PTRS reports, your payment terms are normally, or your payment times are normally calculated from the invoice receipt date. So as I've mentioned this before, we can add that receipt date. So in this example on the screen, we have both the invoice receipt date. We still also need the supplier's transaction date, but we're capturing the receipt date here as well. So that's in Sun 6. We're just using one of the general description fields. And that's the only real change that needs to happen to the entry of the invoice. Then if we look at the supplier setup, again, we've customized a standard form. We brought the key fields such as tax details, which previously is actually on this tab here. What we've done is brought them forward, the key fields of PTRS, onto the front tab. So it's a lot easier for the users to enter the information when they create the supply. It's all on the screen in front of them, so that they know that they've got to fill it in. On top of this, we can apply business rules to ensure that the format of the ABN number is for the right length, it doesn't have spaces. So we've got business rules that could be put in place to actually control that. So that's the information in Sun. There are some additional, it depends on your the relationships you've got with your suppliers and supply chains. So there are some additional reporting fields that you can introduce if they apply to your business. But that's really the main setup that needs to happen in SunSystems. And then from there, we can flip, excuse my screen, we can flip then into one of two templates. The first template I'm going to look at is the template we're using to check our ABN information, check our PTRS flags, and also update that information. So this is my template in Q&A at the moment. And on this screen, what I've got is got the ability to extract the supplier details. So I can get my current supplier details out. So I've got a macro there that will update my client details. Once I've extracted those details, I've got the ability to identify, oh, look, I'm missing two ABN numbers here. So I could then type those ABN numbers in and upload. Then my next step would be upload that to Refresh Sun. So you can keep on going back and forth with this process until you're happy that all your ABN numbers are there and valid. And once you're happy that you've got your suppliers ready to check in the SBI tool, what you can do is we've got another macro where we can just click create an ABN file, and that's creating a very simple CSV list of all our ABNs. That's in the format that can be uploaded direct to that SBI tool within the portal. So that's a file. You can change the location of the file and the name and convention if required. This is just a demonstration version at the moment. So you sent that, you've uploaded that file to the small business tool, and the system will then come back with a list of ABNs as such that it is determined as small businesses. So you have a list of ABNs. So then at that point you can copy from that list. We've designed this so it could just be a straightforward paste into this area of the worksheet here. We're then using Excel Smarts to do calculations and then determine whether or not businesses are classed as small or not on the system. So we're using Excel formulas to update these. So fields in grey preset for you. So we can then, having updated this, that's changed the flags on a number of these. Some were small suppliers before, but they're no longer classed as small suppliers. So in that case, what we can do is we can just reload this information up into SunSystems. So we can click on that macro and upload that information back to SunSystems. So I've changed that macro earlier on. So that is the end of the housekeeping process. So as I mentioned earlier on, you could run that at the end of each month. You could run it mid-month. You could run it when it fits into your cycle to keep those suppliers updated. So there's a minimal number to update when you come to do the report at the end of the reporting period. So that's the process essentially from Q&A. If you need to check all your suppliers, we've got a supporting worksheet here, which gives you a list of all the suppliers, so you can double check that the information that's returned to you on this screen is correct. So we have some additional tools built into this to assist you in querying and double checking the data. So that's a supplier template to maintain and update the ABN numbers. And then at PTRS reporting time, what we have here, this is a copy of the template that's output by from the portal. The portal will supply you the template, and you'll see it's a one-line report at the moment. We've only got one reporting entity in our scenario. Only our AcQuum test entity is liable to report. So we only have one line on here. And a lot of this information, as I mentioned, is static. So we've got our primary in BIC or business industry code. We have to enter that in here, our ABN, our business name, and towards the right-hand side of the report, who's actually prepared the report, etc. But then the sort of crux of the report are, for our reporting dates here, are these figures that need to be returned. And these figures are both based on the number of days you take to pay people and the value and number of invoices you pay within those periods. So that information, whilst it looks like a very simple report here, the underlying information that prepares it could be quite detailed. I've only got 3 small businesses in my system at the moment, but it could be that you have a large number of small businesses you're dealing with. So rather than have to wade through lots of individual suppliers, we've got a report that extracts all the detail, both on invoice numbers paid, or the count of invoices paid within those periods, and the values of those invoices. And then we've got the calculations which work out the number of invoices as a proportion of the total. So these figures that you have to return in the report are as a proportion of the total. So that sort of data that we've got in the report, we've got all the detail here, but that all rolls up, and the fields shaded in green are the ones that are then passed through to the PTRS report. So they feed this report here. So it's using a combination of Q&A and Excel functionality to keep this report updated. So once that report is updated, you do some final checks on the information that's in here, so the name of the person that prepared it, etc., and double check the figures. If you feel that you've missed some small businesses, you can go back and rerun the process. But once you're happy, the next thing to do is actually copy that out as copy that to a new worksheet, workbook, and save that as a CSV file and output that directly, upload that CSV file into the payment times reporting portal. Now we can even automate that. We could actually we can put another macro on the back of here to actually produce that CSV file for you to save you having to copy that sheet out. That's just one step in the process I haven't got in my demonstration at the moment. So that's a very quick look at the sort of tools we're using. As I mentioned, EPM or DEPM as it used to be known can also provide that same functionality. It's all based around using analysis codes and data fields within SunSystems. So that is really the end of my presentation at the moment. So at this point, I'll hand back to Leon.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so that concludes today's event. Thank you very much for everyone